Welcome, everyone. Really excited to be back with you all for our very last update, daily update from COP26. Where today, on the last day of COP26, we noticed that even we, the small team of the Pocket Project, is starting to look at COP27, which is going to take place in Egypt next year. And of course, we hope to travel there again with all of you. But also that there's some really strong voices coming out today, questioning where we are with the results of the negotiations. People are in the last rounds of negotiations. And UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres said that the 1.5-degree goal was on life support at the moment, and that the summit would probably not see governments make the pledges needed. We also heard from Mary Robinson, one of the venerable elders of politicians in the world, who's also the head of a group of senior political leaders who are pushing the agenda around climate, accused some of the world's major carbon emitters, namely Russia and Saudi Arabia, of blocking a more ambitious action plan. Yeah, and other countries are also being accused of really making the movement forward difficult. Namely, also the US has been called out. So yeah, we're in these complex and difficult last hours. They really hope that they will have a deal by 6 o'clock tonight. That's in 4 hours. I remember watching them in Paris when I was actually staying with one of the negotiators, and they worked through the whole of the Friday night and extended until Saturday. Yeah, and just, also just having an understanding for the intricacy, the political infighting that's happening here, where the well-being of the world is concerned, and there is this each country trying to look after its own well-being, and is there a shift to generosity and actually looking out for everyone on the planet. Yeah, and I think as we speak about the complexity of negotiation, it's a wonderful moment to welcome Mumta Ito here with us. Mumta Ito is from South Africa, just as myself. Her husband is Japanese. Her own roots are actually from India. And yeah, we both live in the eco-village of Findhorn, so we sometimes meet up for cups of tea and conversations, and we're looking forward to doing that again, also reflecting on COP26. But just saying a few more words about Mumta. She sees law as a vehicle for societal transformation in a paradigm of restoration, reparation, and healing. Mumta's focus is on realigning law, both the lived law and the written law, with the universal laws that govern all life. And many of you who've been learning with Thomas Hübl for a while will know how much emphasis there is in Thomas's work on aligning with the sacred law and acknowledging transgressions of sacred law. Mumta is a former structured finance lawyer for top-ranking global law firm Clifford Chance in the City of London. So she was advising governments, multinational corporations, and investment banks on finance, and then she shifted into becoming an environmental lawyer. She set up an NGO in the Caribbean to create a people's movement to successfully save an island of global ecological importance through bringing about legislative change. Today, she's one of Europe's leading experts for rights of nature, an advisor to the UN General Assembly, initiator of a European Citizens Initiative to put rights of nature on the legislative agenda of the EU and founder of the charity Nature's Right. Mumta, it's an absolute joy to be here with you today. Thank you so much for joining us. Sometimes I think of you as a firecracker of a woman. You just have so much fire when you speak. So, yeah, really welcoming your sparkling energy in this last day of the COP. And maybe we just start by you sharing about that moment in your life where you made such a huge shift from finance lawyer to a lawyer standing up for the rights of nature. So what happened inside of you at that point in time?
So yes, it was a journey and a progression. I was, like you described, a finance lawyer, and as I found, in this world of investment banking and all of that, while I was outwardly getting more and more successful, something inside was dying. And there came a day when I noticed that there's nothing marking the years anymore. There's where am I? Where is this spark that I knew as I? It's not here anymore. I'm just a shell. And it was around that time that my father invited me to come and see a very beautiful, enlightened being in Germany, Mother Mira. And I'd been raised with a very spiritual upbringing, and I'd turned my back on spiritual practices during this time that I intensely went into that world of investment banking law. And I went to go and see Mother Mira. She has this incredible power. She looks into your eyes and she can realign your energies. So she looked into my eyes. I went to sleep that night. I had the most profound dreams of being held by the most incredible, swirling, nurturing energy. And I spent 3 days with Mother Mira. When I came back to the office, I literally looked around and the show was over. What am I doing here? This has nothing to do with me. And so I quit. I had no idea what I was going to do. And so, but I felt a deep calling to get reconnected with the essence of my being in a very deep way. And I went deeply, deeply, deeply on the spiritual path. I spent 3 years with Amma, during which time, in the flow of things, I got invited to bring this case in the British Virgin Islands, where we protected one of the major breeding grounds for fish in the whole of the Caribbean. But the answer didn't come through the legal system. The answer came in many ways, which conspired to bring about a result that ended up saving the system. And so through this process, I understood that all change happens at the energy level. And all I need to do is to stand as a conduit for that energy to do the work. And as long as I could keep myself clear as a vessel and have the willingness to move with what I am guided to do without questioning it, that miracles can happen. And it was something of a miracle to protect this area at the time. How that then led to Earth Rights, I came away from all of that. I ended up in my journey in Findhorn being a mother. Being a mother was a hugely transformative experience because it really viscerally connected me with the earth. I could feel so much reverence and love and respect for everything that had been a mother, everything that had been born of a mother. And I felt that my work was just to sit with the energy, because all shift happens at the energy level. And it was during this time where I received very profound guidance to put a project together that brings law and healing together, that shifts the paradigm upon which the existing system of law is based on, and is about the rights of all living beings. And to go away and do a series of meditations. So I did 40 days of meditations. from which I was guided to work with systemic constellations. And through the first constellation process that we did with a group of lawyers exploring the field of holistic law, looking at where a change agent would be most effective, it was where the law had to recognize all beings. And it was at that point that the existing system of law was not equipped to handle that, and holistic law was able to take its place. So from there, I got the inspiration to start a European Citizens Initiative for the Rights of Nature, and my work has grown and deepened since then.
Yeah, wonderful. Thank you, Mumta. That's a beautiful description. And I think just an inspiration for all of us here on the call who might just want to recalibrate. Where am I right now? How much am I aligned with the sacred energy running through my body? And where are there parts in my life which have become hollow and are ready to be left behind at this point, you know? I'm even wanting to call all of us, you know, maybe by tonight, you know, maybe there is something that wants to be acknowledged as a commitment, even going forward from this. So, yes, coming from that, we had last week, we had Jojo Mehta speaking to us about the law of ecocide and also speaking about the rights of nature as the other side of the coin. So we've had that introduction. Yesterday we had John Liu with us speaking about the incredible power of Earth system restoration and the protection of all life to safeguard microclimates, pockets of microclimates, pockets of life that can protect our planet, you know, as we allow them to grow together. So I think we have the background, but I would love you to give us an introduction into the rights of nature. And I know that you've brought some slides for us, so I would love us to just go into that.
Okay, that's wonderful. Before I dive into the slides, there's just one thing I want to bring into our awareness and attention, that when we come to the subject of law, people often have this distanced feeling from it, that law is nothing to do with me and I cannot affect change on that level. But all law is are a set of agreements between people. It's something deeply relational, and it's something that drives how our entire society governs itself. It's also reflective of our collective vibration. And so law is very relevant to each and every one of us. And we can all shift the legal frame through our consciousness. So I just want you to hold that while I'm going through the slides. Okay, so the first thing, there is no environment. We're the Earth's extended body. This is our essential stance in the nature's rights movement. As we can see in the picture, nature's rights is really about using law as a vehicle to bring about systemic change. It's not a litigation tool, and it's not a tool simply to stop destruction. In law at the moment, the law doesn't recognize a relationship between us and the rest of nature, yet it is our most fundamental relationship. The rights of nature actually underpin our human right to life, from which all our other economic rights, all our rights and freedoms, you know, including property rights, corporate rights, everything emanates. Yet it is unacknowledged in our legal system, which is why we end up having the problem. If we're to look at a model of our current society, and we think of it as an iceberg, all the crises that we see, the ecological crisis, the poverty, the pandemics, the climate crisis, food crisis, sixth mass extinction, it's these are just the visible parts of the iceberg. This is what we can see above the waterline. But if we go deeper, the parts that we don't see are the structures and the systems, the silo structures and systems that are fragmented, the mechanistic paradigm worldview, the separation consciousness that all that emanates from. And of course, all of that separation consciousness sits on a bedrock of trauma, where particularly in Europe and around the world, we had the enclosures, we had the burning of the witches, the enclosures got exported then as colonization, all of this founded on the idea of property rights. And so with this, this trauma, as it were, encoded, giving rise to the separation consciousness, then encoded into law, giving rise to the mechanistic paradigm, the fragmented structures, we get all these negative outcomes on autopilot, leading to a degenerative cycle. So all of the causes of this crisis are legal. You know, we have agriculture and food systems that poison the earth, economy based on infinite growth, energy that depletes nature faster than she can replenish. All of these are legal. So getting off carbon is not really going to solve this problem. It's going to solve this problem up here on the top, the climate crisis. But it isn't going to solve the machine that starts with the trauma and the separation consciousness that generates, drives our systems and legalizes destruction in the institutionalized way that we have it, that keep giving rise to different negative outcomes. And so we call this the degenerative cycle, the death cycle. So how do we get out of this? Well, we need to change the paradigm, transform the system, and embody the change that we wish to see in the world. Because if changes are just made in law and they're not embodied, then we don't really get a shift in consciousness. We don't really get a shift in paradigm. So the changes have to be followed all the way through. And so if we're to look at our future society with nature's rights, we start with the healing of trauma, which gives rise to the unity consciousness, the holistic paradigm, whole system structures, which then generate positive outcomes on autopilot, regenerative economies, pandemic resilience, health and well-being, climate resilience, thriving ecosystems, thriving biodiversity, food security, and so on. And we call all of this the regenerative cycle. So this happens by encoding that unity consciousness in law, and this is what we are doing with nature's rights and with earth jurisprudence. It's laws based on the interdependence of all life to bring systemic change. So we're to look at how this could work in practice. So if we look at our current model of sustainability, you have nature, people, and economy, and they're all separate to each other. And it's assumed in this model that they operate independently. But of course, none of these can operate independently because in the real world, we have a nested hierarchy of systems where you have nature, you have people as a subsystem of nature, economy as a subsystem of people, because without people, there's no economy, and without nature, there's no people and there's no economy. So if we are to look at the rights-based framework, how the legal frame interacts with this, at the moment you have human rights, you have corporate rights, and they're in opposition to each other, with corporate rights stronger because they're enforceable against everybody, and human rights are only enforceable against governments and not corporations, and nature's rights is not even existing. So in our model, you would have a nested hierarchy of rights that follow the natural orders, where the rights operate in synergy to each other. They operate in harmony with each other. So you wouldn't have an economic right in our model that would go against a human right, and you wouldn't have an economic and a human right that would go against nature's rights. This creates a relational view of rights that brings it much closer to the indigenous, worldwide indigenous concept of right relationship. So it's a relational and ecosystemic view of rights. And then if you were to look at how can this be implemented on the macro level? You take our 3 circles and you map them out, make them into a wedding cake and put the planetary boundaries at the bottom. You can then map out the UN Sustainable Development Goals on the nature, people and economy, the planetary boundaries at the bottom, and then you have the rights-based framework corresponding to these different levels: nature's rights, human rights, economic rights. And if you combine it with these already existing indicators, then we have a framework for its implementation. And this is what we presented to the
Oh, did we lose Mumta?
so that we can...
Mumta, we just lost you for a few moments,
Ah,
like probably a sentence or two. So I don't know whether you can go back
tell
2
me where.
sentences.
Okay,
Well,
so did you hear the part about the nested hierarchy of rights in the second?
absolutely.
Okay, so the last part. So basically, yes, we did a study for the European Economic and Social Committee about the introduction of an EU fundamental charter for the rights of nature, where we presented this integrated model, where you have the planetary boundaries, the sustainable development goals, together with a rights-based framework for its implementation and enforcement. So you have nature's rights, human rights, and economic rights, where all of the rights are embedded within nature's rights. At the moment, we talk about sustainability, but there is actually no legal framework for it to achieve it. Whereas a law of ecocide is about stopping mass destruction, which is a wonderful thing, and it needs to be done. Still, it is working in the top level here of the paradigm. And it doesn't act to encode that relationship in law, but with nature's rights, we are acting right at the separation consciousness by establishing that relationship in the legal system. And from that, we create the systemic change.
Beautiful. So just show the last slide also with the contact email address, because
so this is the contact email address. I don't know if the floating bar is covering things, but a little word about the painting. This is a painting produced by my beloved sister who left her earthly existence last year. And before she left, she made a series of paintings of extinct species, where she felt that the spirit of each species was speaking strongly to her and showing her a dimension beyond death and beyond extinction. And so I invite you just to attune to the image and what it is conveying. And if anybody would like to know more about nature's rights, of course, please do get in touch.
Yeah, thank you so much, Mamta. That was brilliant. So maybe we can end the screen sharing so we can have you back. Beautiful. Thank you. Such a clear, concise explanation. It's truly astounding. Like, it has a crystalline quality to it. And it was truly beautiful to have this build on everything that also went before in this program, so yeah, it feels like a true, such clarity is also what people are writing in the chat. So thank you so much for that. And we have only 5 minutes left, but I'd actually love to ask you, Mamta, because I know also as a woman leader, bringing something new like this into the world, and of course there's also earth rights, right? There's different movements coming together. So let's not speak about all that and the intricacies sometimes of NGOs working in a similar morphogenetic space, But just for you as a leader, and I know also, you know, that you've lost your sister last year, and, you know, just going through the pains of life, can you share more, you know, because you've also shared with us the deep spiritual connection that has fed into your motivation to stand up for our unity, actually. So, how is it to stay balanced and resilient while doing this work in the world, while sounding your voice in the world?
Well, ever since I had that prophetic meeting with Mother Mira, I have never done less than at least 3 hours spiritual practice a day. I find that taking the time to build the resiliency of my own nervous system, of my energy system, of increasing my capacity to be present, to live and conduct myself with awareness on multiple levels, to sharpen my awareness beyond the physical realm, and to be able to tap into that stream, and to spend sizable amounts of time deeply dissolving into my essence is what revives me, is what keeps me going, is what makes me humble, makes me realize that I'm just an instrument and nothing is ever lost. No amount of energy brought with heart, brought with pure intention, is ever wasted. And sometimes we may feel powerless in the face of seemingly impossible situations. But I want to say that the powerlessness is an illusion. We are more powerful than we know. And in our world, in the incredibly difficult energies that we have to deal with on a daily basis, I find it so important to remain deeply connected with nature, to make a point of going out in nature, and we are very lucky, Kasha, you and I, that we can be so close to nature. And I appreciate, you know, for some people living in an inner city, this may not be so readily available. But when I worked in the law firm and I had that change of heart, I turned my desk around to look out of my skyscraper to the sky, and I realized I had a fabulous view of the sky. And so wherever we are, we can look at the sky, you know, we can look at the stars, we can look at the moon, we can look at the clouds, we can still connect with nature. So yeah, inner nature, nature around, connecting with each other, to take the time to really to listen, to feel, and to show up fully.
Yeah, wonderful. I really deeply appreciate your being here with us today, and I look forward to continuing to build our friendship and all of these friendships that are a deep part of the mycelium of people that are practicing to work in more and more clear ways as a conduit for life force to come.
There's one thing that comes to my mind that I would like to share. It was when you first spoke, Kosha, at the beginning about the disappointment around the negotiations. So a bit of inside information that I received a few years ago from one of my colleagues who works in the UN. She said to me, I don't know why the NGOs go to these COP meetings, because before the negotiators arrive, they already have decided what they're going to do, and it is impossible to influence them. But I went to Glasgow, you know, of course, knowing that they're not going to change what they've already decided. And I don't know why they do things in the way that they do with all this fanfare going on. But what was beautiful was there was a spirit there in the streets. amongst the people. There was something that was shifting, and I could feel the bubblings of a shift in consciousness that is starting to emerge and starting to catch fire. And I feel we can take this away as our hope, that once enough of us shift, they will shift too.
It's wonderful that you say that, because that's exactly what I've been speaking about here, what we've been speaking about, that somehow it feels like there's a shift in the wind, like the wind is changing. And I was comparing it actually to before apartheid collapsed in South Africa, or, before the Berlin Wall collapsed, just a faint sense in the air, like, oh, spring is coming, and it's there. It's there. So I love that that there is more of us feeling this, smelling this. And yeah, I look forward to the next steps. This is exciting.
Totally
So
exciting.
thank you, Mumta. Be well, go well. Thank you, everybody, for being here and listening to our last update from COP26.